I'm Rita and Higgins and I'm from Galway. I'm only arriving at YEAT'S now. Joyce was always one that I preferred, and it wasn't even preferred because if I didn't know YEAT'S, how would I have preferred Joyce to him? But I knew that Joyce was manageable and that he was easy and that he was funny and that he was outrageous and that he was irreverent. I thought he was mocking, like you'd be slacking someone, and that made it easier for me. And I just love him. And I thought, I can bring him on holiday, but I would never in my wildest dreams think of bringing YEAT'S on holiday, you know. YEAT'S wasn't a priority and I didn't have any issue with that. I had so many other people to read. I had to read Joyce and I had to read Martin Kine in the language that he dreamt and wrote in. It was a huge challenge trying to read Kine stories in Irish, you know, on Tila Tila and those wonderful put-downs. So YEAT'S was never a priority. You might say I have missed out. I haven't. It's a bonus now. I'm in YEAT'S team at the moment and it's good. I'm enjoying it. My first choice is Broken Dreams. And now, I thought he whinged an awful lot in No Second Try. And I thought, you know, filling my days with misery, get over yourself. And then having taught to ignorant men most violent ways, this really upset me because I thought these are Irish men that he's talking about. But I didn't know when I read that or when that was in the ether. So when he wrote No Second Try, he was sick emotionally, he was sick physically. He didn't accept the relationship with Maud Gonne was going to have to go back to the astral plane because they did actually have sexual relations, as they say, at that time. And then his uncle died as well at that time. So he was completely wiped out. But I didn't know that when I was responding to No Second Try and that misery and the whinging. And then I thought, when I read Broken Dreams, even though it wasn't that many years, it was maybe 5, maybe 7 years later, I thought, he has mellowed something fierce. And I liked the dance in Soul's Sake, and it was SOLE, Soul's Sake, and Beauty's Beauty and all this thing. Now, he mentions beauty so much in his poetry that is another thing that stick in your craw. But then I understand now that was all part of the romanticism and that time, and when he was moving towards modernism, it was different. But he would have said beauty or beautiful over and over again in so many poems. But in Broken Dreams, there was more of, I'm getting over you, I still love you, but... And then this thing about the hands was like saying, actually, I can see your backside. It was such a revelation. You know? What can I say to her? I've scrutinised her, but Eureka, your hands are old. Broken Dreams. There is grey in your hair. Young men no longer suddenly catch their breath when you are passing. But maybe some old gaffer mutters a blessing, because it was your prayer recovered him upon the bed of death. For your soul's sake, that all hearts ache have known, and given to others all hearts ache. From meagre girlhood's putting on burdensome beauty, for your soul's sake. Heaven has put away the stroke of her doom, so great her portion in that peace you make, by merely walking in a room. Your beauty can but leave among us vague memories, nothing but memories. A young man, when the old men are done talking, will say to an old man, tell me of that lady the poet stubborn with his passion sang us, when age might well have chilled his blood. Vague memories, nothing but memories. But in the grave all shall be renewed. The certainty that I shall see that lady leaning or standing or walking in the first loveliness of womanhood, and with the fervour of my youthful eyes, has set me muttering like a fool, you are more beautiful than anyone. And yet your body had a flaw, your small hands were not beautiful, and I am afraid that you will run and paddle to the wrist in that mysterious, always brimming lake where those that have obeyed the holy law paddle and are perfect. Leave unchanged the hands that I have kissed, for old sake's sake. The last stroke of midnight dies. All day in the one chair, from dream to dream and rhyme to rhyme, I have ranged in rambling talk with an image of air. Vague memories, nothing but memories. And it's kind of sad too when he says, the last stroke of midnight dies, all day in the one chair, from dream to dream and rhyme to rhyme, I have ranged in rambling talk with an image of air. It was kind of very sad nursing home stuff, really, wasn't it, towards the end? The fascination of what's difficult is very different. It's very interesting to me. Of course, I'm looking at Rent and Colt and Cloud and Dolt, and he uses knave and dolt, but he also uses that in another poem against unworthy praise. He uses knave and dolt, and he uses it towards the end of the poem, same dolt and knave. So I looked up dolt, and dolt is dunce and quite insulting, really. You know, he was good at the put down. But then, when he praised his friends, he praised them well. He had poems about friends, he had poems called Friends, and he had the Municipal Gallery poem where he mentions all his friends, and that was quite late. But actually, I read somewhere that Helen Wendler said, the American academic, that he was really including himself in that elegy, which was very interesting to me as well. You thought he was taking the higher moral ground and praising these friends. I thought, how nice of him to do that. But actually, you'd have to think of him then when you're reading them. So he got one in, he scored another goal. But to get back to the fascination of what's difficult, I think it's about disenchantment. And when he talks about Olympus leaping from cloud to cloud, you have to think Pegasus, you have to think inspiration, you have to think he's between two stools in it, really. You know, there's theatre and there's his own creative side, and he's battling a bit between the two, and he's showing impatience as well. And he mentions on the day's war with every knave and dolt, and he swears before the dawn comes round again, I'll find the stable and pull out the bolt. So did his creative juices disappear for a little bit when he was in the theatrical, and is that why he said, I'll find the stable? Well, I don't know, because I want my own interpretation of the poems. There's plenty written about all the poems, but you want to kind of interpret them in your own way, and that's what I think it was about. The fascination of what's difficult. The fascination of what's difficult has dried the sap out of my veins and rent spontaneous joy and natural content out of my heart. There's something ails our colt that must, as if it had not holy blood, nor on Olympus leaped from cloud to cloud, shiver under the lash, strain, sweat and jolt, as though it dragged road metal, my curse on plays that have to be set up in 50 ways, on the day's war with every knave and dolt, theatre business, management of men, I swear before the dawn comes round again, I'll find the stable and pull out the bolt. Now, for all the golden dawn, the spiritual illumination, the occult, the automatic writing, everything that was in his life, did it satisfy him though? And what then? I don't think that it did. What then is the same really to me as saying, what if, you know, I had all this and I searched for more and I had the writing and I had all the women and he was polyamorous. My God, did he have a good time? And you would feel sorry for George, even though it kind of came across in anything I read that she was okay with things, but we're interpreting that. But was she really okay with things? I read that his son Michael said he loved the idea of children, but he didn't really know what to do with children. And that photograph of W.B. Yeats with the book turned down on the grass and the two children behind him, his son said it was such a struggle to get that photograph taken because W.B. was up in the loftiest spot of the loft and George had got the photographer in, and Yeats was really perturbed that he had to be coming down to sit with his kids for a photograph. And then the minute the photograph was taken, he just got the book where he had left off and walked off. And I thought that was sad as well. The disenchantment in what then is kind of pity on him, because it was certainly towards the end of his life. What then? His chosen comrades thought at school he must grow a famous man. He thought the same and lived by rule, all his 20s crammed with toil. What then, sang Plato's ghost, what then? Everything he wrote was read. After certain years he won sufficient money for his need. Friends that have been friends indeed. What then, sang Plato's ghost, what then? All his happier dreams came true. A small old house, wife, daughter, son. Grounds where plum and cabbage grew. Poets and wits about him drew. What then, sang Plato's ghost, what then? The work is done, grown old, he thought, according to my boyish plan. Let the fools rage, I swerved in naught. Something to perfection brought. But louder sang that ghost, what then? And there was something in that poem. He had the Choc Beag Bídeach, the kids, the wife, he put that in himself. So he knew he had the things that, when he was coming up on 52 and he was saying, oh, got to have a wife, got to have kids, because it has to fit in. It has to be aligned with the stars and the planets, bloody yada, yada, yada. So he had everything that he required. And he was spiritual, we know. But was he really? What did he have? There must have been a massive emptiness